Welcome to Content with Character, the weekly podcast that'll give you the momentum you need to create content with more ease, clarity, and laughter. I'm your host, content copywriter Emily Aborn, and I'm all about unconventional marketing approaches. I believe in your big ideas, and I'm excited to help you share them in a way that's distinctly you. Sometimes it just feels like you are throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall again and again and again. And sometimes you're throwing fettuccine, elbow macaroni, and lasagna noodles at the wall when the spaghetti is already sticking just fine. Back away from the pasta. This episode will help you determine what's sticking really when it comes to your business and visibility and how to let go of the tortellinis weighing you down. Hi, welcome back to the Content with Character podcast. I feel like we have a lot to chat about here on the show, all before the ball drops. So much to inspire you with, so much to share, and so little time. We will make it happen though, I promise. Don't worry. Do not fear. So, content and visibility chat aside, maybe that's kind of how you're feeling right now throughout your life and your business this month. I know that December can be a little bit of a nutty one. My hand is raised high, and joke is on me because I definitely went into December thinking, oh, this is going to be a nice, light, relaxing month. And somehow 3 birthday parties, 2 Christmas parties, a bunch of personal appointments as we wrap up the year financially and physically, and a Christmas Eve brunch later, here we are. It's not quite the light month that I anticipated, but let me say this. I actually would not have it any other way. I am very excited for this holiday season and just how family and friend filled it is actually this year, specifically because last year was, well, not my personal best, not my personal most enjoyable holiday season ever for various reasons. And then the 2 years prior to that were like a little bit COVID skewed, COVID influenced, if you will. So I'm going to soak it up and really, really looking forward to all that is coming this month. And as I enjoy some more personal focus this month, I kind of wanted to share what I've decided to do in my business to be able to accommodate that without losing momentum, losing client work, and in general, just like how I am, this is like a behind the scenes on how I'm like setting myself up for a successful, coming out of the gate hot, I guess, successfully in the new year. So first off, I did, say, of course, I'm not like taking the month of December off. I said yes to a few select clients and projects who did have deadlines prior to the new year. So I'm happily working away on those now. And I even had like a new little project pop up that I was like, ooh, this is super exciting and unexpected. And second, I'm also using this time that might be slower with my actual client workload to do some planning in my business. Like I'm really focusing right now on cleaning up, refining, making things clearer and tidier on my website, specifically in my finances, reviewing my subscriptions, things like that. And then thirdly, I was like, you know what? Let's have a little fun here. Let's have a little fun. So I just decided to come up with this last week and put it out there. I am offering strategy sessions throughout the month of December. And I always offer strategy sessions every month, but this month I decided to let my hair down a little and create a special deal called a content catalyst. So for those who want to get in on the special, it is basically a quarterly content catalyst session. You buy 4 of my strategy sessions and you are going to get a 5th one free, which is a $225 savings. And then you get a year plus 1 month, basically, or plus 1 quarter, however you want to work it, of strategy sessions. So these are like always a huge hit with people. I really sit down with you, spend a lot of time with you, help you take action, implement on the ideas, and make sense of all those things like muddled around, jumbled up in your head. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to share one more time about these sessions and just a little bit of what we can actually cover in the sessions so that you can find how to book them and get yours. I'm limiting these to like the first 10 signups because I do want to be mindful of making sure that I am still giving myself time with everything and presence with everything that I've committed to. And I also want to make sure I give everybody who grabs the offer their dedicated time and attention as well. So My point in sharing my little personal December modifications in my business is because I shared in last week's episode about how our businesses go through ebbs and flows and experience different seasons. And sometimes actual seasons, like actual holidays and events and things going on in our lives and actual seasons like winter, spring, summer, and fall, they do influence what happens in our business and what we're focusing on and offering in our business. So if you did miss last week's episode on seasons of business, which doesn't have to do per se with actually the physical season that we're in, it is actually just about seasons in your business in a different way. Anyway, I'm not going to belabor it. I will, however, include a link in the show notes, and I would love for you to go back and listen to that episode. You don't need to have started there, but this week we are going to springboard off of that topic that we chatted about last week. And we're really going to start talking about amongst those ebbs and flows and seasons and all the things that we're doing in our business. There's a lot of stuff coming and going all the time. And what is really sticking? What is really worth holding on to, and what can we maybe safely let go of? And sometimes this also boils down to a question of, well, how do I actually let go of some of these things? So I'm going to share a few story examples, some questions that you'll be able to reflect on. And as we go, hopefully you'll just be able to relate to a lot of what I share for your own business, your own marketing, your own visibility efforts. So that's where we're headed today. And real quick, just before we dive straight in, I do like to remind loyal listeners who I am, as well as introduce myself to new listeners. So if you're a new listener, welcome. I really hope you'll stick around and hang out with us. I'm Emily Aborn. I'm a content copywriter, podcast host, and speaker. I've been an entrepreneur for 9 years and owned 3 different businesses during that time, both brick and mortar, events, and online. And I only share that to share that I am actually building my own business alongside you. I have been building businesses alongside you as I create podcast episodes, as I share these episodes. I walk my walk, talk my talk when it comes to content creation, collaboration, marketing, visibility, all of that. And this podcast really is a result of a lot of firsthand success, failure, and everything in between as it relates to content, marketing, and visibility. So if you want to learn more about me and hear the full story, you can visit emilyaborn.com. But all that to say, after learning hands-on in my own businesses in different formats, right? Different kinds of businesses, and also working with hundreds of small businesses, like directly working with them, I've really had a chance to learn a lot about what is sticking and what is not. So that's where we're headed in today's episode. We're going to review your current efforts and visibility and chat about how you even go about doing that. And then we're going to talk about evaluating what's working. And third, we're going to get into letting go of things that aren't sticking. And I have just a few ideas therein. I'm not a therapist. Sometimes it's harder to let go than others. All right, let's get into it, shall we? So starting off with a story. 2 weeks ago, I was helping a friend locally. Hi, Lindsay Dreyer. I was helping Lindsay with a photo shoot for her new branding images, and the company who was shooting the pictures, basically they were setting her up with a year, maybe it was a little bit more, but a year's worth of content and social media images that she could use. And they were all different. Like some of them were her presenting, some of them were her just like having lunch with friends, some of them were her teaching in a workshop format. It was awesome, if you ask me. And so Lindsay said, I need help, I need models, and we have like this local little group of women that get together a lot. So obviously, I'm no model by any stretch of the imagination, but I can hang with my friends, smile big, have fun, and pose like I'm learning and loving every single step of the way. So our first stop was the local library, where Lindsay gave us a hilarious and riveting fake presentation. It was not real. It was fake. And it was fun. And then we went into like a classroom downstairs at the library, where she actually did start taking us through an exercise she does with her clients. So basically it was like a life inventory is the best way I know how to describe it, where she walks you through everything in your life and you get to actually see it all visually, like right in front of your eyes. And then together with you by her, with her by your side, you get to figure out what is sticking. In this case, this was like actual sticky notes, and also what needs to be let go of or what needs to be delegated or maybe moved to a later time. It was pretty awesome. And I think you might think so too. So I did want to just include Lindsay Dreyer's information in the show notes and the link to book a day like that, if that sounds like something you need on your calendar. It says for real estate agents, but I happen to know because I asked that it's actually for like a lot of people. So, all right, as we were pretending our way through this real activity that she does with people and getting our photo taken, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is so similar to my taking inventory episode. And this is uncannily similar to what I'm going to be talking about in my Content with Character podcast this week as it relates to marketing and business and what is sticking. It also sparked for me an idea. So I said to myself, oh, actually, I could see somebody doing this for themselves with their actual marketing and visibility. Like if you're a very visual person, you could really use the sticky note method and actually put everything up there on a wall or on a whiteboard, whatever you got, for yourself to see. So I do think that there is something about actually taking time to write everything down. But of course you don't have to. And then further, I was thinking like, you could go through your business from systems to social media platforms to activities you're doing and just like put all of those things on a sticky note. Maybe you even categorize them, right? Like subscriptions, marketing, expensive, client offerings, etc. So I did this for my own business recently, like very thoroughly. Now I'm a list girl, so I made a Google Doc with all of the categories I wanted in my own analysis. And I used a lot of those categories that I talked about in that taking inventory episode and the worksheet that I included. Do you remember that one? It's no worry if you don't. I will include a link to both the worksheet and the episode in the show notes so you can get in on both of those. But I did that. I actually went through my own, like I said, I practice what I preach. So I went through my own activity, and once I dumped it all out, it was eye-opening. Like I went through everything, all the events I attended this past year, all the workshops I did, the people I connected with for coffee chats, every client I've worked with, all my offerings, all the ways I market myself, every single person that referred me work. And then I just let it sit for a minute. So that might not work for you in that list format. I think the best way for you to figure out how you want to even go about this is going to depend on who you are and how you actually like to review and analyze. For me, a list was enough, and I could kind of like take my own list, color code it, add emojis, pizzazz, wherever I wanted. And I also made little notes next to things, which I really liked. Others might love a sticky note approach, right? The one I just talked about. You might like a spreadsheet. I could see that really working out too if you're like, ooh, I just love spreadsheets. Just give me a good spreadsheet. And you could put in some metrics that you really wanted to focus on in your spreadsheet as well. Plus, like somebody else can do the math for you. It's lovely. A computer, technically. Some of you might like pen and paper or a mind map or a brain dump, like that kind of thing. And others of you might somehow be able to magically do all of this inside your own brain and not need to write a single thing down. My husband actually might be able to do that. He'd be like, let me evaluate my marketing efforts. I have two things. So choose your method, but the goal is to compile it in front of you. So you want like all these things that you've done over the past year, all the marketing and all the visibility efforts that you've done over this past year, and you want the opportunity to be able to see it so then you can evaluate it. And so then you're like, well, okay, great, I can see it, but what does it actually mean to evaluate it? Like, how do I self-assess when it comes to my own stuff? Some of this might include metrics. Some might be actual numbers. For example, how much is your email list growing? How much is your podcast growing? It could also be things like how much business came from this place. So for me, I'm able to, and I do keep track of this, how much business comes from my podcast, for example, or from an event that I do, for example, or from a certain referral source. So I keep track of all of that. So then I just have those actual numbers. Like I can look at a person's name and say, okay, this person referred me this much business this year. Also through my website, same thing. What is harder to track sometimes is things that are a little less tangible, right? So like audience feedback when you presented somewhere, or maybe engagement that you're getting on your social media platforms, whether or not your overall message is really, really landing, whether or not people want your services and your products. So a lot of that, some of the information you can actually visually see. I'll use a podcast as an example. Specifically with podcasting, you can see how long people listen to each episode. You can see which episodes are most shared. You can see which episodes are most popular. But there is some that you might have to just kind of like feel into, like some of your social media content. And some of that does include metrics, but some of it you will have to use a gut sense or evaluation rather than actual numbers. So here's one of the questions I think. So here's the hardest part. After you have all the facts, I think the hardest part is that you have to be really, really honest. And you know who you have to be really, really honest with? Yourself. You can ask yourself honestly to evaluate where you've been and if it aligns with where you want to go. So for example, some of the questions I like to bring up for myself are, okay, when I'm looking at all of these things, do they match up with the actual goals and direction I want to be going in? And is it in line with what I want to be known for and also recommended for? So I like this one a lot because let's say I give an amazing workshop on how to manage your time productively as an entrepreneur. That is not what I might be able to talk about that, like through time blocking or task batching, a couple other little tricks I have up my sleeve, but it's not really what I'm going for or want to be known for. So basically, this is a time to ask you what you really stand for and ask yourself what you really stand for. And is that clear by what you've done this past year? Are you kind of staying in your lane? And I'm not saying you can't try new things. I'm just saying, are you only doing it because someone else is doing it or you think you should do it, or you just like to say yes to random things or be a people pleaser? Or are you doing it because it's really in service of where you want to go and also who you want to be known for and how you want to be referred or recommended? Last kind of questions to ask yourself, are the things that you're looking at on this list or this brain dump or this whiteboard, are the things that you're looking at fun? And maybe not all, unicorns and sunshine, but are they at least relatively enjoyable? Like, did you despise anything that you're looking at? When I'm honest with myself, there are things I looked at on my list that I was like, oh my God, I did not like that. From A to Z, I did not enjoy that. And I think that those are some really good places to start. I also really think that if you absolutely abhor something that you're doing, it's probably a good sign that you want to let it go, because you're going to show up from the energy of really, really resenting what you're doing. And that's not going to play well for you as a marketing and visibility effort. You know what I mean? So those are some good questions, I think, to start. And I'm just going to give you a couple lifetime examples of what this looked like as I went through this. And the reason I especially want to do this is because there's some nuance, okay? So this past year, I did quite a few workshops for a nonprofit organization that helps entrepreneurs throughout the state of New Hampshire. Now, I did not get clients from doing the workshops. I did not get paid for doing the workshops. I didn't really get anything from doing the workshops when I looked at it on paper. But what I did get was I developed a fantastic relationship with the organizer. I got a speaking opportunity at a conference as a result of doing the workshops, and I got to network and meet so many people at that conference. It was actually like a magical day. It was a ton of fun. The entire experience has been a ton of fun. It lit me up from head to toe to be able to guide people and educate people and answer their questions. So when I look at it on paper, it's like, well, it's not really a marketing thing, right? But it is a keeper for me. It doesn't have to make you money to be a keeper as long as it's in line with the direction you personally want to be going, what you want to be recommended or referred for. And also the last bit of criteria is just that you decide that you want it to stay. Another example is that I was on a lot of business related podcasts this year where I talked shop and specifically like content and visibility. It was great. And that will definitely remain part of my strategy moving forward per se. You can see how it aligns with my goals. You can also see how it aligns with what I want to be known for and recommended for. I also connected with 2 podcasters on a sheerly fun basis. And that is Doug and Strickland of the Nice Guys on Business podcast. We do these episodes on a semi-regular basis. I'd say that come out on Fridays. And it's not business. It's not content talk. It's not copy and SEO. It's just fun. And no, it has nothing to do with my business goals. And am I going to keep doing it? Yes. Now, number 3, I want to give you an example of something that on paper looked like it was working. And for me, it is a no. I work with a lot of website designers as I write the website copy. And we, them as the designer, me as the copywriter, we collaborate very closely with our clients to bring their message to life. Now, one who actually was a very good source of income with me, but after several projects with him, I realized it was not a good fit. The way that he was structuring everything, it just doesn't allow me to do my best work when we collaborated. So I had to let it go and trust that something else would take the place of him. Now, I had a friend recently share with me that she also is facing a client that she actually wants to let go. Now, this client is always pushing up until the last minute, trampling over her boundaries, making her operate under like kind of intense deadlines, and it's causing significant stress. Now, her decision is to wait until somebody can replace that income, that client. My decision was simply to say, you know what, I'm going to let it go and believe or trust that somebody else would take the place of this person. Which did happen, thankfully. May not always work out like that, right? Sometimes you might have to really hustle to fill that space. So anyway, the reason I share those examples is just so that you can say, oh, okay, that's what she's talking about. That's kind of how she uses a different array of criteria. But a lot of it really just comes back to you. And like, what do you want? What do you want to be known for? Is it enjoyable? And is it going in the right direction? So doing something like this, I think, really gives that opportunity for you to get back in the driver's seat of your business, and you can look at, what did I do? What am I doing on a regular basis? Is it working? And do I want to keep on going with it? Or is maybe now a time to let it go? There's no right or wrong answer. There's really just that answer that moves you closer to the direction of your goals with more, I think, ease, more excitement, more flow, and also more success, right? So we want to be generating more business to ourselves, so more success. Another thing I looked back on this year that I saw wasn't working for me was the actual way that I was like scheduling out some of my weeks, like my client time versus my marketing time and calls and networking things, and just like what I was filling a lot of my time with. These are not all going to be fun realizations. Like when I saw how much time I gave away, I was like, oh my gosh, this is painful. Sometimes we realize we've just been running hard and fast in a certain direction and it's doing nothing for us and maybe even setting us back. These are not fun realizations. And then you kind of have to ask yourself, like, go under that a little bit and say, well, why? Why do I say yes to this even when I know that it's not in my best interest? Or was it because I believed that it was going to be in my best interest, but now I can see it for what it is, and I realize I'm not going to be saying yes to that going forward. Okay, while we're on the topic of unfun realizations, some of the things that also came up and may come up for you are actual beliefs or habits or routines or structures or ways of thinking or being, if you will. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a vulnerable personal example here. So my husband and I were having a chat last week about just like overall positivity and our natural tendency to find problems and poke holes in something before just allowing the dreaming and the seeing of possibility. Now, I know that you probably hear me on this podcast and you're like, Emily is Captain Positivity and Sunshine. But between you and I and the fly that has been living on my wall since August, and is somehow still surviving, between us, I can go to some really dark and hopeless places. And as we were talking about positivity, this topic, I realized that I don't do this for other people. Like for other people, I can be an avid cheerleader, bright, peppy, positive, and I really do believe that for them. Like, I believe in them and I believe they can go for it. But when it comes to myself, sometimes I'm often not so kind, let's say, not so cheerleady. So that was pretty eye-opening for me. And I realized that's a way of being I don't want. I don't want to be that way. And there's no sense in there really is no sense in being my own wet blanket, raining on my own parades, because you know what? No one is going to have my back or your back like we can have our own. But in order for that to happen, we need to have it. And in order to do that, I kind of need to adopt a new way of being, right? I need to believe in myself for myself. So all this to say, now is also a great time to examine your beliefs and your actions, see what you've maybe taken on as your modus operandi, and maybe you do not want to be lugging around with you anymore. It is just not sticking anymore, okay? And another word before you decide something's not sticking or not working, I want to ask you this. Have you given it a fair shake, an honest try? Have you really put effort into it? You can't just say, oh, it's not working if you've only half-assed it. Or you've just been like, oh, I hope it sticks, but you haven't really done anything about it. I'm not saying you need to put 100% into everything, but it should feel like everything you're putting time and effort into at least feels like something you want to be doing. At least it's like an 88%, yes, I want to do this. So that's what I think. So make sure that what you decide is quote unquote not working or quote unquote not sticking is something that you've given a really fair chance, a really honest go. Okay, I'm going to give you a few last questions to use in your review. These ones I'm going to include in the show notes, and then we're going to really quickly talk about letting go before I let you go. So here are the questions. These are going to be again in the show notes, but I want you to ask yourself this. And these, you'll notice, are not necessarily numbers based. They're more of just a gut sense. But I want you to ask yourself, what went absolutely fabulously? What went just okay? What did not go well? Maybe it even went awful. What would you do again? What will you not be doing again? And then what was actually worth your time, money, energy, emotions, efforts? What wasn't? You could probably even ask yourself these questions without doing the whole brain dump. I don't know. But anyway, so this should give you some really clear indications of what you maybe need to let go of. And if you're still a little unclear, I think that there's some signs to look for that something might be ineffective, something might need to be let go, or at least it's on the chopping block, okay? So I thought of three, and I'm going to apply these to just content in general, but here are three signs that it's ineffective. First one, low engagement or interaction. Now, specifically in your content, whether it's on social media or blogs or emails, if it's consistently receiving minimal engagement, it might lack a little bit of resonance with your audience, or you might be sharing it in the wrong way or on a platform that just isn't really working for your business. So that's actually one of the things I do help people with in my strategy calls that I was sharing with you about at the beginning. The other way to know if engagement is low or interaction is low is you might actually see stagnant or declining metrics when it comes to things like your website, your podcast, your emails. And let me just say this, in your relationships, this might also occur. You might see places where you don't experience meaningful connection, or you're constantly walking away feeling tired or icky, or it just wasn't a mutual experience. When it comes to your health, this might be feeling stuck or stagnant, or, in a funk with your routine. And you might also have this around creative projects too. Where in your life are you experiencing low engagement or interaction in your creativity? So that's one sign to know that, okay, what I'm doing is not working. Number two, looking for those mismatched goals and the actual results you're getting. So specifically around your marketing, when they're not aligned with what you're actually aiming for, the direction you want to go, and the results you want in your business, it's a pretty good sign that it's at least ineffective for you. So for instance, if your goal is to increase sales, but your marketing initiatives are not translating into conversions or increased revenue, there's a disconnect there between the strategy you're employing, and the outcome. Okay, and then lastly, a lack of feedback or just like positive results. And like I said, this one could just be a feeling. It could be, these could all just be a feeling. It could be your own feedback. If you're not receiving positive feedback from customers, seeing an increase in inquiries, observing positive impact from your marketing efforts, or maybe you're like not getting people the results that they thought they were going to get. It could signify inefficiency. And maybe throughout your life, there's something that you're trying that's not working. It's not sticking. You're not getting positive results. So those are some signs. And there are tons more, I think, of course, that would be like a little indicator that it's time to part ways and let go. And sometimes you actually do need to say something, to speak up, to let something go, to part ways. Like you might have to actually express it. I know it sounds painful, but maybe it's an email, maybe it's a conversation. Sometimes it's simply reaching out and checking in with the other person and kind of just opening up the pathway for a mutual conversation. Sometimes it's easier. It's just this matter of saying no moving forward. It might be a promise that you make to yourself or to somebody else. Sometimes letting go of something is as easy as canceling a subscription, right? Or leaving a group. And even easier, sometimes it's just literally something, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. But once you've decided that something is a no, I would not waste too much of your time working to remove it from your list of services, from your calendar, from your monthly credit card bill, from your weekly schedule. I'm personally right now getting rid of a service of my own. And in doing so, I realized I needed a major reno on my actual services page. So I just went ahead. I said, you know what? I already know that I don't want to do this service. So I'm going to take it off my website right now, right here and now. And the reason I say don't deliberate and waste time switching it up is because I think often when you know, and if you don't 100% know, let's chat it out. I would love and welcome chatting it out with you. Did I mention I offer strategy sessions and I have a deal right now that's buy 4, get 1 free. So we can chat before the year is over. And then we'll also get 4 more in 2024. I did promise you I would tell you a little bit more about what I do in those sessions, and I want to keep it concise in explaining it. But also, no joke, the possibilities really are endless. We can discuss just about anything in your business as it relates to content, marketing, and visibility, from website copy and SEO to networking, to starting a podcast, to forging new collaborations. I bring it all. I'll have ideas, resources, and action items for you. So if you're interested, again, the link is in the show notes, and I do have that deal that is buy 4, get 1 free. So you get 1 before the year is up, and then we meet once a quarter in 2024 to keep you on track and gaining some serious momentum. So to wrap this episode up, I hope this inspired you a little bit to reflect on your own content and visibility efforts over the past year. I hope it gave you some actual actionable steps and questions you can use to reevaluate your own strategies. I really think it is important to give ourselves this gift, to be checking in. And I'm not saying just do this once a year. Do this regularly, to be checking in and saying, is this really for me? Is this something I really want to do? Business, visibility, marketing, content, it's life, it's malleable, it's evolving, it's adapting and changing. So there's no reason for us to be stagnant in the decisions that we're making. There's no reason for us to keep on doing things that are not working and just keep trying the same old. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. I really want to hear your experiences, thoughts, and any questions you have after hearing this episode. Remember that all the links to connect with me are in the show notes. And as I said, I've got that a 4 for 5 special on those strategy sessions through December 31st, 2023. Next week, inspired by my friend Alicia Galati, I'm going to be getting out my crystal ball, my content crystal ball, and I'm going to talk about my predictions for content in 2024. It's going to be fun. I will also give you a preview or a foreboding of how we're going to kick off the year together in January. I really thank you for being here, and I will chat with you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.